All right, folks. So today I'm going to talk a little bit about publishing to the cloud marketplaces with Replicated. The cloud marketplaces are provided by all of the major clouds, as well as some of the more niche-oriented clouds. And I'm going to talk a little bit about what they are, why you might want to distribute your applications with them. And then I'm going to take you through an example that I built using AWS. So let's get started on what the marketplaces are all about. So my friend ChatGPT helped me with this definition. I like the metaphor of thinking about the App Store, but for the cloud, although someone pointed out to me today that maybe the app stores provide a little bit more opportunity for discovering in a way that the cloud marketplaces are more that you sort of go seek out something you already know about. But then again, I feel like that's what the app stores have turned into lately as well. So I think the metaphor still holds a little bit. So you have a situation where your customer wants to use your package, you let them know you're available in a cloud marketplace, and they can run over and they can grab that and they can get started. So let's take a quick look at that. I'm going to look over here in a AWS account. I'm going to look for the Slacker News application. Let's search for that. And you can see I've got this instance of this application. It's got a little page that says information about it and lets your customer go through and start the process of subscribing. You can see this one here has a little tag here that says it's bring your own license, and it's named bring your own license here. This was sort of my first pass at taking the Slacker News application and making it available this way. Slacker News being, if you've been to RepliCon before, you've heard quite a bit about Slacker News. It's our sample application for Replicated. But the bring your own license, well, it was a great sort of first pass at getting this done. It doesn't necessarily provide all the advantages of using a marketplace listing and using the marketplace to distribute. So I sort of went past that one into a more in-depth solution that we're going to look at today. So I mentioned a little bit, what some of the advantages are, why you might want to do it. So why would you sell through a marketplace? And the main reason is you want to make it easier for customers to buy and install your application now. Replicated has already made it easy for you to distribute and facilitated your customers' installation once the infrastructure is there. But the cloud marketplaces help you at that step even before then when the infrastructure is not there. But really, the main reason that I see for the marketplaces is not a technical reason at all. It's got to do with sort of the financial circumstances around it. Your customer generally will have budget available in their cloud provider, right? Any purchase they make through the marketplace is going to count against the committed spend they've made to their cloud provider. And most of your customers are going to have commitments to at least one cloud provider, if not more. Certainly their main one, they're going to have some commits up front. And so your product becomes part of that committed spend up to about 50, around a rate of around 50%. So, excuse me, I just had a camera problem, switched out there. In other words, instead of having discussions in a field about, how do we get this customer aboard, how they found the money and all of that, the budget's there, the budget's already committed, they're going to do spend, you can get either way. It's a great avenue for that. Also handles the billing and details like that. The other advantage is that there's some common installation patterns there, right? Generally, your customer is going to be familiar with the marketplace options for their cloud provider. They're going to be able to take advantage of these and go out and easily go through sort of starting the installation and bringing it into their environment. They're going to, again, as you see, there's sort of I showed you in that example, there's this sort of just continue through to the subscription, and it's going to initiate the installation. So it's going to be really nice. They're going to be able to see their subscriptions in a list in their console, so they're going to know what's going on. So the sort of installation patterns, the understanding of what's going there, and then they'll last a little bit. And honestly, I tend to forget this one a little bit, but the cloud teams are actually incentivized to support you. So not only do you have your team going out there and selling and marketing your application when you're selling through a marketplace, but your partners from the cloud providers, and even if you don't have a formal partnership with them, you can usually track down whoever's selling to your given customer from the cloud providers. I've been in situations where we've done that. even without a formal partnership. And they're more than willing to help you out because it does fit into how they get incentivized, in addition to, how your sales team is incentivized. So a lot of advantages, take some roadblocks out, gets you some help, makes things a little easier for your customer. So great reason to do it. And also a lot of those translate into, why it makes sense for that customer to buy, right? But it's already there. They know how to install, they know how to get going. So how do we get there, right? We want to take advantage of these. We see that this is interesting to our customer. We want to take advantage of what we can get, what we can do. So first thing you're gonna do is what type of product do you want to produce? In general, all the cloud providers are going to have different types of products. I'm more familiar with the AWS ones. They're going to have server-based products. They're going to have container-based products. They're going to have data products or SaaS products. So you may even already be distributing your SaaS that way and want to bring that to your customer managed version. I would recommend that we do a server product using the embedded cluster, and that's the example we're going to look at today. You want to make sure you automate the maintenance of all of your artifacts, right? You're going to need some machine images in the server model. You're going to want to create the replicated license. You're going to have templates and files that are necessary and supported. So all the things that are running in your cloud, and we're going to see a architecture picture in a second. Some elements are going to be running in your cloud. Some elements are going to be running in your customer's cloud. So all of the things that are running in your cloud, you want to make sure you have automated maintenance of those things, so that you can easily modify those and get them up and running. And then more importantly, and I think we all know this as software providers, but you want to start simple and you want to iterate. So if you look at my example, I started with you bring your own license. I started to see challenges with that. Number one is that it doesn't really hit that financial incentive without doing some other elements. Number two, it the instance wasn't necessarily ready to go once it spun up. It was difficult to know when it was ready. So there were some challenges to that, but at least I got that going. And then I made an improvement. And so that initial version was a server product, in Amazon speak, a server product that's an AMI product. And now we have an AMI with CloudFormation. Some of the other recommendations I have, first of all, like I said, build among the embedded cluster. Include all of your cloud dependencies in the machine image that you use. I've built one that you can pretty much just take. I've built the Packer files for it. And include any dependencies you have in that image to simplify the spin up. Take advantage of our new customer external ID. When we see the demo, we'll see this. These are going to be coming from AWS accounts, so you should probably want to track that on the replicated side, which account it came from. And then, most importantly, you want to follow the best practice patterns for the cloud that you've chosen. So sometimes as you go through best practices, you're going to get ideas over here and ideas over there, but pick the ones that make sense for you. So for example, in the example we look at today, I'm going to spin up the entire VPC that's running the application in the replicated cluster. I saw that as a best practice. I thought I liked it. It made sense for what I was trying to do, but I've seen other best practices that say, hey, prompt for the VPC and subnet. Again, that's going to depend on sort of what makes sense to you, but follow the practices as well as you can. And that's for a couple of reasons. Number one, it's going to be taking advantage of what's expected, those patterns that the customer is used to. Number two, it's going to help you with the approval process because all of these marketplaces are going to have some sort of approval process. For that simple BYOL version of the product, I was able to just automate that approval. It was great. Got that sort of through and ready and into development in an automated fashion. For the version that we're looking at right now, we're actually, unfortunately, in the demo today, not going to see it installed through the marketplace. And that's just because of that review process. It takes 3 to 5 weeks. I started building it closer to today than that. So it's not fully approved yet. But anyway, we'll take that. We'll take you through sort of what you'd need and what it would look like as it was run as a CloudFormation template if it were launched from the marketplace when we do the demo. So, all right. So what am I going to show you? I'm going to show you about, how are you going to provide your product on AWS? So this is my example. There are going to be similar techniques on Azure, on Google, on IBM, on Oracle, et cetera. And we're really going to be dealing with, 4 different entities here, right? We have the marketplace itself. We have the replicated vendor portal. We have things that are running in your AWS account, and we have things that are running in your customer's AWS account. So they're color coded here. The things that sort of, are provided by Replicated are in red. The things you provide, the things you maintain are in green. Amazon's pieces are in orange, and things that are going on for your customer are in blue. So what we're going to do is we're going to initiate, as if the customer deployed, we're going to initiate a CloudFormation deployment of your application. In the case of this, it's Slacker news application. And we're going to, we're going to run that template. It's going to create some resources on the customer side. And one of those is going to be what Amazon calls a custom resource. And that custom resource is driven off a messaging topic. That message goes through. It's going to call a Lambda that you maintain. That's why we're using messaging for that, because you want to maintain this, protect the access to your vendor portal account. That's going to create the license at Replicated. It's going to respond with information from that customer record and the license, namely the download URL for the embedded cluster, and the token to do that download, which is just part of the license. It's the license ID. Then CloudFormation is going to spin up a VPC. It's going to spin up a node running your application on top of our embedded cluster using that license. So this is what we're going to go through today in the demonstration. So let's jump over to sort of your perspective on what you're doing here. I've got sort of two consoles here, one around the AMI and one around the CloudFormation template. So the AMI that I'm using is fairly simple, does not have any real Replicated related bits in it. If you look at it here, I drive it off of the user data. It's just sort of a habit I've come into rather than building this provisioning into Packer. Makes that a little bit more reusable for me. It's going to install some packages that it needs in order to do the installation. I do a little bit of hardening here of SSH, and then it's going to install some dependencies. One around, sort of letting CloudFormation know that when the installation is done, and then the AWS API Python library, COTS, because we're going to change the embedded cluster password. And then we do a little cleanup here just to make sure we stay on the good side of those AWS reviewers and don't allow brute SSH. And then if we pop over here, we also use user data inside that CloudFormation template to spin up the individual instance. So that CloudFormation template, it's going to have some parameters. These are going to be more interesting when we see it live, but they're going to pick their instance type. They're going to pick the disk size, subscription, etc. We select the AMI based on the region that they're running in. And then we start creating those resources. So we have the license, which is triggering a Lambda based on a topic. That's going to essentially create the Amazon customer, the Replicated customer and the license behind it. We create the admin console password. So one of the things that I iterated on was initially, I just had this as sort of one default. And I realized, well, that's going to be every one of your customers is going to spin up on port 30,000 with the same default password. Probably not a great idea. So instead, I use the AWS Secrets Manager. They give you a great way to generate a secret. Your customer is going to know how to find those secrets. And so we're going to spin that up. Then we do some access related things, spin up the VPC and the network. And then we show some outputs that are going to be useful. So let's take a quick look here at the node itself. Oops. The node is going to spin up in that VPC, in that subnet. It's going to have access through its instance profile to that secret, and then it's going to run its user data. What that's going to do, take a look at it. It's going to download the embedded cluster install using that information we got from creating the license. It's going to run the install with that license. And then it's going to get the password from Secrets Manager, change the admin console password, and tell CloudFormation it's done. And that's important because this will take a little while, right? We're spinning up the Kubernetes cluster now. We are substantially faster in spinning up the embedded cluster than other types of clusters, but it's still a little bit of time. So you want to be able to signal to CloudFormation when that's really ready. So let's pop over here. I'm going to quickly run a make here that's going to build that up for us. It's going to take and it's going to create the Lambda. It's going to create the topic to get the message. It's going to make sure all the permissions are right for those. And it's going to drop that template into an S3 bucket. You can see the little steps here. It's going to output for me that template that I'm going to use. That's the template that you would use to create your marketplace product. While you're doing development, you just would continually run through this in CloudFormation to make sure it was working. I recommend you do that in a separate account, maybe not your first through iterations through, because you're going to have a lot of errors that you want to be chasing down, and you want to sort of separate out permission errors from other types of errors. But certainly after you've got it fairly stable, you want to do some testing from another account, because it's going to be running in, as you remember from that diagram, it's going to be running in the customer account. So you want to make sure all those permissions are right. So I'm running in a different account from the one I ran it in. I put all those things in. We're going to specify all these parameters. This would be done as part of the marketplace that these would be prompted for. But because we're just sort of pre-running this, I put an option in there, whether they want to be in beta or not. I don't know. That just seemed like a fun one to me. And then you can pick an instance type here. I don't want to go too big because this is my personal account. We need a private key, excuse me, a public key. I'm getting mixed messages about whether you can directly prompt for this or you need like the name of an Amazon key or something. I'll find that out as I go through the approval process, but we want to be able to get in there to sort of run the shell and do sort of troubleshooting. And then is this paid? Is this trial? Again, the marketplace can handle that piece for you. But we want to get that here. So I'm going to hit next. I'm going to scroll through the steps. This is just standard getting started from CloudFormation. Again, this will all just pop through when you hit that subscribe button once the customer's doing it. And I'm going to hit submit. So this is going to be sort of going through and spinning for a little bit. I'm going to refresh this a few times because I'm impatient. You can see it's created the admin console password already. It's in the middle of creating the license and all the network pieces. The resources start to show up here as they get created. So I can pop over here. You can see create license is starting to show me an ID of it. That looks an awful, actually it's complete. That looks an awful lot like a replicated customer ID, as it is. I can go over here to get the admin console password. I'm going to need that when my instance is ready. Just retrieve that secret value here in plain text. Nice random password generated by Amazon for us. Thank you, Amazon. And then we can keep looking at the events as the rest of this spins up. So you can see my node creation has started. Again, that's just going to take a few minutes. And that's because we're waiting for that instance to be fully ready with the embedded cluster running. If I start looking under here at my resources, pretty soon it's going to show me that node is actually there, but it's got to run through those steps to install and start the embedded cluster before it's going to report back to CloudFormation that it's ready. And that's really critical because as you see this time that we're waiting here, you don't want your customer to think it's done because the node has started up when the cluster and your application aren't ready yet. So you can see a lot of the different things going on here. I'm going to pop back over to this picture. So we just sort of short-circuited this, and instead of creating the subscription, we provided a template directly to CloudFormation. All these pieces are being built up. So this runtime, let me give it one more check to see how it's doing. Okay, that instance is up, but still in progress. That means that the replicated bits are running. So let's take a look at sort of what's next here while we wait for that to come up. Replicated is looking at this and saying, okay, this is something we should probably productize, right? I've got repos out there. The links are in this presentation, and you reach me to get access to my repositories. They're under my account because these are not products today on GitHub, but one of them at least needs a little bit of a README update. Probably they both need a README update, but one of them needs a README. But they're basically usable today by setting a couple of variables for Terraform. You could spin all these bits up for yourself and start down the process of getting that approved. But that's not, that's not a replicated product, and we'd love to provide you a more productized, comfortable experience than building and maintaining all those pieces. So we're looking at how we would productize this. First of all, we want to support the three major cloud marketplaces and the different delivery methods they have, right? What if you want to do a Helm chart into EKS, for example, versus instead of the embedded cluster spinning up? We want to look at what that might look like, and whether that's interesting versus this. We want to look at the other marketplaces that are available. There's OpenShift, there's Snowflake, there's the lesser clouds. The people at those companies probably don't want to hear me call them that, but and then, how do we do more integration across all of our different components around this? And, our product team is looking for who might be a good design partner for that. So if you have some interest, you can reach out to Replicated either through your account executive, come to me directly. If you're in a shared Slack with us, jump on Slack, pop it up. One of us will jump in and answer anything about that. So this is sort of the future. Let's take a quick look back at the present and see how this instance is coming along. And check out our events. All right, so we're still in progress there on that instance. My outputs aren't there yet. One of the outputs I'm going to get is going to be the link to the admin console. I think we're going to have to sort of, unfortunately, I didn't put the cake in the oven up front, so I'm not gonna be able to show you that piece unless it spins up in the next minute or so. So I want to quickly show you the resources. Our embedded cluster docs will help you understand a little bit more about how the embedded cluster works, as will the next talk. And then I've got a couple of GitHub repositories. These are links here in the slides, of course, but I'm presenting them now. So anyway, just reach out to me. I am CR Dant just about everywhere, or chuck@replicated.com. And again, in Slack, just at me, and I can drop you those links. And this CloudFormation one has a pretty good README. The embedded cluster one, unfortunately, doesn't, but make image is what gets the image built. One last check to see if this comes up before we have to finish. And it unfortunately has not. So you're going to have to take my word for those outputs being there and that password being set correctly. And I will hand it back to Grant.